Be like everybody in Texas.
And did any of those people have guns?
No.
There you go.
Great question.
Mao's actually technically took place during something called the Cultural Revolution in China.
Right. And the first thing they did before they killed them all was took their guns.
Right.
They made guns illegal.
Right.
So if it starts to happen, heads up. Okay, so what protects us from that? The Constitution and our guns. Okay, I sent out an email back in, I think it was December, in the newsletter, talking about the National Defensive Authorization Act. Basically what it is, Obama signed into law that the government has the ability, the soldiers have the ability to come into our homes and arrest us, take us away to a concentration camp, FEMA camp, whatever you want to call it, put us in jail indefinitely, it says indefinite in detention, or execute us. He signed that, and he did it on New Year's Eve, while we weren't looking, we were partying. Yep. So there's a quick video here about the National Defensive Authorization Act. So don't believe me. Watch what they say.
Shopping and dining over Thanksgiving and maybe watching some football games. Big government Republicans and Democrats were busy shredding the last vestiges of the Constitution. They're talking about inserting the Army into domestic law enforcement. Senator Lindsey Graham, who supports this bill, says, quote, "The homeland is part of the battlefield, and people can be held without trial, whether an American citizen or not."
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
The original Constitution, I think it is an imperfect document, and I think it is a document that reflects some deep flaws in American culture, the colonial culture nascent at that time. I think we can say that the Constitution reflected an enormous blind spot in this culture, and that the framers had that same blind spot. It also reflected the fundamental flaw of this country that continues to this day.
The Senate will pass tomorrow a bill allowing the American military to imprison American citizens indefinitely without charge or trial.
Congress is essentially authorizing the indefinite imprisonment of American citizens without charge or trial.
I think that denigrates the very foundation of this country. It denigrates the Bill of Rights. It denigrates what our founders intended.
How bad is this?
It's quite frankly absurd, Keith. I mean, here we are 10 years after 9/11, in the wake of the demise of Osama bin Laden, the only leader that al-Qaeda has ever known. And we're passing a provision that would codify the indefinite detention without trial of suspected enemies of the state. And that includes, as you mentioned, American citizens apprehended here on U.S. soil. We have not codified indefinite detention without trial since the McCarthy era. That's how extreme this is. And the most amazing thing is that it's not necessary.
Charles Dyer. I'm an oath keeper. I'm with the 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion out of Camp Pendleton, California. I absolutely could not, I can't imagine that we're living in the times where I have to worry about having to confiscate the weapons from the American people. Is that freedom? It's absolutely not freedom. That I have to worry that we're going to quarantine a city for the purposes of keeping them there hostage, like Katrina? Absolutely not. That's not freedom in any way that you can think of it. I'm almost speechless whenever I try to talk about this, because I can't imagine that we're living in this kind of time. It really bothers me. Absolutely.
I saw a tremendous pattern of a growth of the infrastructure of a totalitarian state in the last 8 years post 9/11. I mean, it's been going on for decades. We've seen for decades encroachments on our liberties, and then a crisis would come along, and then all of a sudden they had a chance to get their policies passed. They've been wanting to pass for a long time.
In this country, let's recognize how history repeats itself. In February 1933, Hitler staged a false flag attack burning down his own German parliament building, the Reichstag, and blamed it on communist terrorists. In the next few weeks, he passed the Enabling Act, which completely eradicated the German Constitution, destroying people's liberties. He then led a series of preemptive wars, all justified to the German people as necessary to maintaining homeland security.
I'm going to read this to you. An evil exists that threatens every man, woman, and child in this great nation. We must take steps to ensure our domestic security and protect our homeland. Did George Bush say that? No, Adolf Hitler said that. Can we continue? Maybe.
Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
It's time to wake up.
For this evening is now it's assassinations. What have we allowed ourselves to become? Are we no longer a nation of laws? Have we become instead a nation of men who make secret arrests? Are secret prisons now simply another tool of the federal government law enforcement? Is secret rendition of individuals now permitted out of misplaced fear? Have we decided that the writ of habeas corpus is not worth defending? Is torture now an acceptable tool for making us safe? Unfortunately, the single answer to all of these questions from the leaders of our country and to many of our citizens appears to be yes. And now we are told that assassination of foreigners as well as American citizens is legitimate and necessary to provide security for our people. It is my firm opinion that nothing could be further from the truth. Secret arrests, secret renditions, torture, and assassinations are illegal under both domestic and international law. These activities should be anathema to the citizens of a constitutional republic. The real threat doesn't arise from our failure to torture, rather desensitizing our nation to the willful neglect and sacrifice of our civil liberties fought and died for over the centuries is the threat. The concept of habeas corpus existed even before King John of England was forced in 1215 by his rebellious barons to sign the Magna Carta. This basic principle and expression of individual liberty, which has survived 800 years, greatly influenced the writing of our Constitution and our common law heritage. Today, we hardly hear a whimper, either from the American people or a stone silent U.S. government as our cherished liberties are eradicated. Instead, we have a government that deliberately orchestrates needless fear and makes people insecure enough to ignore the reality of their lost liberties. It should not be that difficult to distinguish the difference between the danger posed by the underwear bomber and the danger posed by a government that endorses secret prisons, torture, and assassinating American citizens.
I'm going to play you a quick little commercial, because if you think it's not going to happen here in America, this is what MTV, I don't know, I never watched TV, but I saw this on the internet. It's an MTV commercial. It's pretty, whoops. I like the way they matched up with the truck and everything, you feel the picture. Basically, in my opinion, we're in Nazi Germany about 1936. Hitler just passed the law that says that he can come in and arrest people. They've already taken away their guns. Of course, we have guns, and that's the only difference. But, speaking of guns, Right now, Obama is ready and poised to sign a treaty with the UN that will ban our guns. Now, they don't know what kind of guns. It's all kind of secret there. But basically what they are saying is we're going to register all weapons. So any weapon that you have will be registered with the government and the UN, not just the American government, but the UN. Banning all certain semi-automatic weapons. If you heard Obama's speech today, he was talking about nobody should own AK-47. I think the price of AKs are going to go up.
Right.
You got to register to transfer all weapons. So if I want to sell him a gun, we're going to have to go through a registration process to exchange guns. That's how it is in California. You can't just sell another citizen a gun in California. You've got to go through a third party, and it takes 10 days to get the gun. It'll be worse than that, I think. That's one of them, yeah. Like somebody was saying before, you know, they always ban the guns before dictators take over. And these are some examples here: Stalin, Pol Pot, Hitler, Mao Zedong, Gaddafi, Kim Jong, and Castro. All took away the people's guns before they took, you know, people off to concentration camps.
You know how they're going to do that for people that don't have them registered?
You don't have guns if you don't have them registered.
Yes, you do.
No, you don't. Read between the lines.
Right. Well, anyway.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
They're saying they're not going to do it. They're saying they're not going to confiscate our guns.
They're not. But what they're going to do is when you buy ammunition for a gun, you're going to have to sign paperwork.
We have to do that in California. Whenever you buy ammo.
California's not really crazy.
That's how they're going to try to do it. Through
Well then,
the ammunition.
buy ammo now.
Yeah. Well, and the thing they're doing with the ammo now is replacing the lead with some, whatever they're putting.
Oh, they're going to make
in.
lead
It's not
illegal.
shelf-
Yeah, that's a
it's
UN
not-
thing
It doesn't
too.
have a shelf life,
Yeah,
so that you can't store as much.
yeah. Well, I say buy now.
Exactly.
Did you know that Hitler only had one testicle? What does that have to do with anything? Nothing, but I thought it was funny.
It does have something to do with it.
That's
Jews
it.
cannot permit a man with one testicle in the congregation.
Oh, really? In the questionnaire we sent out, we said, what is posse comitatus? For those of you that don't know, basically says that the military cannot be used on the streets of America. Yet it's what Obama and our administration is doing right now. The picture here is soldiers at the Kentucky Derby being policemen. Soldiers doing checkpoints. Soldiers doing house-to-house drills of confiscating guns. You know, we're passing the Rubicon.
He gets around that by calling it a people, I forget what his word is, but it's like a people's army. It's not the...
Oh, yeah, it's not the military, right, yeah, good point.
It's
Yeah.
a civilian
It's
army.
brown shirts. It's the brown shirts, basically. It's Gestapo. Okay, now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the RFID chip. What they are, how many of you know about RFID chips? Most of you. Okay, we'll just skip this part. Basically, I'll run through it. It's a radio frequency identification chip. Basically, it's something that they've been planting in animals, so you could find your cow if it escapes or something, or your dog. They are putting it in soldiers, so they know where they are in positions on the field and stuff like that. And I just heard on the radio the other day that they're going to be putting them in children in San Antonio, and in a neighborhood where the kids are poor and they're Mexicans, so they don't speak English, so they can't fight back too well, but as a testing ground for the chip. Now, you can look at there's two sides to every technology. There's the good side of a chip, and there's the bad side of the chip. You know, it does record your medical records, so if you've got an accident and you're, you know, what blood type you are, and if you're diabetic or something like that, and you're unconscious, they can just scan your chip and know all that. So that's a good thing. You know, it can be used for good. Your social security number is on it, your criminal record is on it, or can be on it, your bank records, it can be in your property, like your guns or your shoes or whatever it may be. And they can also push a button and the chip can kill you.
They can also what?
Kill you.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Either at the end of this year or next year, they're all going to be on the bank cards.
Yeah, right. Well, they're going to start with the card. And it's all training. It's all training, conditioning. Exactly. It's training.